are things that I've seen consistently done by our top earning members in our community, traits that lead to long-term success. So looking forward to diving into those on today's episode.
We've noticed that there are clear traits and habits that separate the top 1% of dropshippers from the rest.
When you see someone operating at 3-4 times what you're at in your company and your business, it just shatters any limiting belief that you had formerly about, oh, we've hit the ceiling here.
We're going to be diving into that exciting topic about what it is that separates the people that are earning £10,000 a month from dropshipping versus...
It wasn't even so much that it was a risk that if I stayed in the job, I would be unfulfilled. It was almost a certainty.
Something that really successful people do is they're able to flip what conventional wisdom is around risk.
So I think the message here and the lesson from our top 1% earners is welcome to the Dropship Unlocked Podcast. I'm Lewis Smith, the founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording the podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. Keen to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business? My book, The Home Turf Advantage, is your blueprint for launching a profitable online store. Grab your copy at htabook.com today and let's get you started. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
We've noticed that there are clear traits and habits that separate the top 1% of dropshippers from the rest. So today we're going to be diving into that exciting topic about what it is that separates the people that are earning £10,000 a month from dropshipping versus the rest. We're going to dive into the secrets today.
Yeah, James, this is a big one. People often think that there's some magic trick behind it, but really it's more about mindset and habits that anyone can build, which is amazing because it means that it is possible. There are things that I've seen consistently done by our top earning members in our community, traits that lead to long-term success. So looking forward to diving into those on today's episode.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great belief to have. If somebody else can do it, then you can as well. So And the good thing about a lot of the traits that we're going to be talking about today are just that. They're traits that you can pick up as well. It's not something that they have over you that you can't replicate. So the first trait that we've identified and noticed with successful dropshippers is around their mindset. So what do you think is the first trait around their mindset that all high performers seem to share?
It seems to be confidence mixed with a willingness to learn. It's that combination of the two. So it's not about being arrogant, but about having the belief in the process and also the belief in your ability to make it work. So if you think of it a little bit like you head into a new Xbox or PlayStation game or a new computer game, whatever console you use to game on, if you do, you might not immediately know all of the levels and the missions yet, but you know that as you go through them, you'll start to figure things out. And so you can go into the game fairly confident, knowing that every single moment you put into it, you're becoming better and more refined and a better player at that game. And you're aware that there will be levels to it and that you'll level up as you go. So even our top earning members, our top 1% of members inside Dropship Unlocked who are already making, 5 figures a month easily, they still show up for the live calls. That's what we see. They still ask questions. They've got that always learning, that forever student mindset, because they know that there's always more to learn. The moment that you stop learning is the moment you stop growing, and it becomes dangerous to become complacent. So if you're just starting, I guess number one advice to take from those top 1% of earners would be to believe in your ability, but don't act like you've got it all figured out from day one. Have confidence, but that willingness to learn is so important as well. There's always more to learn.
Yeah, it's such a great point. Something that's so consistent in the top earners is the beautiful balance that they've put together between belief in themselves and a humility to know that they don't know it all. So if you don't have either of those, or if they're out of balance, then either you don't have confidence in yourself and therefore you don't ever start because you don't believe in yourself that you can make it happen. Or if you don't have any actual humility, you think you know it all, then you're never willing to bring on new ideas or learn from other things and learn things that you don't know already. And so you can't grow. So there has to be a balance. And certainly from those people that join in on the calls, people that are really successful, making loads of sales every month, but they're like one of the people, or a few of the people that ask the most questions. because they know that they got to that position from taking on new information, and they're going to get to the next level as well by communicating with others, sharing what they've learned, and then finding out from others what's taking other people to the next level beyond that. So they don't try and do it all alone is something that really comes clear when they have that humility to learn from others. So what do you think then about that as another trait? How do you see people who are really successful interacting with others?
Yeah, they're not trying to be heroes here. The ones who grow fast are the ones who ask for advice, as you say. They get involved in the communities. They share their experiences because they know that there will come a day where they won't have the answer to the thing they're trying to figure out. And at that point, they'll need the community. So they lead with value in that community, knowing that the community will reciprocate back to them later. It's not, they don't view it as transactional. They just know it's kind of like karma. You know, the more good stuff you put out there, the more good will come back your way. And it's kind of like if you're assembling flat pack furniture, it's way easier when you ask a friend for help rather than trying to like wrestle one side of the wardrobe and the other side and try and like hold it up and balance it and trying to, you know, you're doing it on your own, you end up making a mess. But if you ask for support when you know you need it from a family member or a friend, it's so much easier to just follow the instructions and get it done. And that's the same way as like leaning on a community when you're building a business. I remember Jared, one of our members in our Dropship Unlocked program, reached out right after making his first sale. He wasn't afraid to ask how to scale it up. He used to show up to the calls every time. I remember speaking to him every time, twice a week on those calls, asking questions, jumping in, and even just to kind of get confirmation that he was on the right track. Even if he didn't have a specific question, he was very vocal and always showing up. And he wasn't afraid to ask how to get to that next step. And eventually he went on to generate multiple millions of pounds in sales, as we've heard recently from an interview we had with him on this podcast. So you can see that eventually it does work. And I know Jared is still learning. Every time we go to our quarterly meetups at Dropship Unlocked, and he comes along and he's always got new things to share that he's testing and trying in his businesses. So I think the message here and the lesson from our top 1% earners is don't be a lone wolf. Ask for help, connect with others. That's the benefit of being in a community like ours, and learn from people who've already been or are just a few steps ahead of where you want to go. They don't need to be there and be multimillionaires, but they just need to be a little bit further ahead than you. And remember, you will be further ahead by a few steps than someone else. So if you can kind of let down the ladder and help that next person up a few rungs, then by the time you need support, people will have seen that in the community and there'll be this reciprocation effect. And if everyone acts like that, that's how it becomes the great community that it is. So that's why it works so well.
Exactly. Yeah, I think nobody argues with the fact that you become the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And because everyone sort of accepts that now as a belief or a fact, then everyone realizes the power of who it is you're surrounding yourself with. It's a big reason why I joined Dropship Unlocked in the first place was to get around people that were in the know in terms of building e-commerce businesses. And then the reason why we work so closely together now, Lewis, and why I'm joining the Dropship Unlocked team was to get around members consistently in the community or on calls or in these in-person events, and which you can do as part of the community. But being part of a team means I'm really close to you as well, Lewis. So I get to learn a lot about how you operate. And I know on this very subject, you've recently got back just a couple of days ago from a mastermind event where you literally do exactly this and get around people that are also in that top 1% that you can speak with and learn from. So when you go to an event like that, Lewis, at that mastermind, do you notice that all these people who are there and earning very high levels, do they constantly want to get around other people at that level as well?
Yeah, do you know, one of the most frequently used words over the last few days at this mastermind event that I went to, and by the way, the level, like the requirement to be in the room at that mastermind event is doing £100,000 in sales per month. Many people there are way beyond, the kind of £1 million mark per year. They're in the tens of millions. But the word that kept coming up was proximity. And it was really interesting. It was all about proximity. Yes, there were strategies being taught in that room. Yes, there were things that people were trying and testing, but it was just to kind of soak up the energy and the belief of what's possible. Because when you see someone operating at 3-4 times what you're at in your company and your business, it just shatters any limiting belief that you had formerly about, oh, we've hit the ceiling here. And you suddenly unlock this whole new level or this whole new dimension of your business, this new arm to it. And it forces you to level up. You become the average, don't you? And if you are the outlier, in that maybe you're slightly below a few of the people in that room, it's only natural and comfortable to level up so you can be at their level. So yeah, proximity to other people in that situation is exactly why I choose to be in rooms like that. And it's exactly why we do our quarterly live meetups at Dropship Unlocked with our masterclass members, because we know that, yes, it's great having a best-in-class online community. It's great having the 30 plus hours of content that we have. Yes, it's great having the 2 live Q&A calls every week, the collaboration calls, the live expert sessions, the member store spotlight calls, that all the stuff we do, great. But there's something about being next to those people, the brain rub that you get from being in the same room as people operating at a higher level than you, that almost makes it uncomfortable not to succeed. Because if everyone else in that room is succeeding and you're not, there's almost like an osmosis effect where you'll leave that room, even if you've not been operating at the level you can be, where you'll feel fired up and ready to go. And that's the feedback we get every time we do one of these events. And that's why they're proving so successful. So we're going to keep doing them. And yeah, we're proud to be the place in the UK for high ticket dropshipping entrepreneurs to come and get around others who are on that same journey.
And the feedback from those events are amazing about how people are getting around each other and just learning from each other. And that brain rub, that chemistry that you got from the mastermind event is absolutely there within our Dropship Unlocked member events as well. People are asking about each other's strategies, learning from each other's experiences, but also just having a great time and just making friends is a big part of it as well, because that keeps you enjoying it and staying consistent with growing as well. So they've been fantastic. And something else that's really driven home recently the importance of environment is that I'm back in my hometown of Shrewsbury at the moment, and I've moved back from a city where I was living before, and the different pace of life can really rub off on you as well, and the environment that you're in. It's a much slower pace of life living here at the moment, and that rubs off in terms of the workload as well that you're able to put out. I found it a big difference, and the only difference that's happened in that last few weeks is just the environment that you're around and the people that you're surrounding yourself with. So think about that. I guess reflect on this and think about the environments that you're putting yourself into, because clearly the people that are in the top 1% are consistently putting themselves into environments where they can thrive and push towards their goals. Another thing that we've noticed, Lewis, is the attitude to risk that people have at the top 1% level versus lower levels and people that are getting started or people that haven't yet reached the levels they want to get to. What have you noticed about the most successful people and their attitude to risk?
I think it's that they know when to go for it. They don't just wing it. It's a bit like booking a holiday. You're not just going to pack up and leave without checking your flight details and making sure that your accommodation's sorted. You plan it out, don't you? You have to kind of prepare these things in advance, but at some point you've got to click book and you've got to actually go for it. And so that's the difference. There are kind of serial planners who never actually do, and they never click the book button. But then there's also people who just wing it and don't have anything planned, and it kind of unravels and falls apart. So it's that balance of the two. It's that confidence whilst having that willingness to learn, the confidence being the confidence to move ahead and click book, move ahead, launch your business, move ahead and register your Shopify store, whatever the first actions that you need to take are. And something that we've seen time and time again from our top 1% members at Dropship Unlocked is that they refuse to become paralyzed by fear. So they take these calculated risks like calling a new supplier for the first time or testing out a new ad strategy, but they do it on a small scale before they go all in. So a lot of them have backup plans too. If one supplier can't deliver, they've got another one ready to step in. They've got equivalent products. They've diversified their income stream from different suppliers, from different ad strategies. They've got good SEO up and running. And so when you take risks, make sure that they're smart, test things out, have a backup, don't be reckless, but more important than anything, keep taking action, keep moving forwards. And it's about taking calculated risks constantly. That is business.
It is. Yeah, it's constantly analyzing the upside versus the downside. And something that really successful people do is they're able to flip what conventional wisdom is around risk, especially when it comes to getting started with a dropshipping business. So, not just when you're up and running and taking new business strategies. When you're getting started, the conventional wisdom around risk is that it's very risky to start an online business and to work on yourself and to invest in yourself. Whereas the non-risky thing is to stay in a 9-to-5 job and go up the corporate ladder. But people that are able to really succeed in this world and go after their goals and be entrepreneurial and build businesses, they flip that on their head and they realize that the risk involved in staying in an unfulfilling job where you don't reach your potential and you don't live a life that you really are proud of is higher, because of the risk is very high in terms of that's very likely to happen if you're not in a job where you feel fulfilled. And then they're able to reduce the risk of going into a business and going after an entrepreneurial pursuit where, yes, there's no guarantee of success, but what is guaranteed is that you'll learn a lot about yourself and you'll grow an incredible, and they'll be able to grow an incredible business out of the back of that, and they'll learn so much from that process. So they're able to flip that, which I find really fascinating. And it's something that was a big part of my journey when I had to get started, because the conventional wisdom is that it's risky to start an online business, but I had to flip that and realize the risk was staying in something that was very unfulfilling and not getting started. With that as well, risk, sometimes it comes pressure with growing businesses or creating an income for yourself. But the people that are most successful, we see them really thrive under that pressure, and they're able to perform when things are tough. So how do you think business owners overcome challenges and thrive under that pressure?
Yeah, well, just to pick up on something you just mentioned there about the risk of inaction, for me, when I was in that position and I was considering the two paths of the slightly unknown path of creating a business and controlling my own income and freedom and having autonomy versus staying in a job, it wasn't even so much that it was a risk that if I stayed in the job, I would be unfulfilled. It was almost a certainty. So it was like, okay, well, this route, it will certainly not allow me to reach my potential. And this one over here might do, but I have control on whether it does or not. Because I can pivot, I can switch, I can start a different business, I can do things, I can change things. In the job, I'm kind of confined. I'm operating in someone else's sandpit. I'm like confined by the rules of the game in that environment. And so that was the bit for me. It was like, oh, well, I'm certainly never going to reach my potential and never going to be truly fulfilled in this environment, but there's an option to be over here. So for me, it was a real, like, straightforward decision. So I just wanted to clarify that because that risk argument, I think sometimes where people think, oh, it's a risk not leaving. For me, it was a certainty that if I stayed, it will, eventually I would maybe retire one day, but I would never have hit my potential. So that's the one thing. The thing about business owners thriving under pressure that you mentioned, I think the thing that we see our top 1% members do, if we refer to them as that, is that they don't crumble when things go wrong. Instead they lean into the problem and they figure out how to fix it. It's just like if your phone starts acting up, if I'm like, oh, the iPhone won't turn on. I was having an issue with the AirPods just before this episode. I don't just say, right, I'm going to throw them away. I troubleshoot it. I had to connect it to my phone and then back to the MacBook, and eventually we figured out the issue. But I think that's just on a micro scale what you have to constantly do in business, because you're always going to have issues. There are always going to be things that rear their head, problems in the business, stuff you need to optimize. But if you're ready to throw in the towel at the first sign of trouble, then you're never going to make it long term. So it's about training your mind. And it's something that we see our top 1% members do differently, is that they don't see those problems as setbacks or kind of brick walls. They just see them as part of the journey. They're like the inevitable hurdles that we're going to have to jump over to make it to the end destination. And they embrace it and they try and enjoy the process of jumping the hurdles, the journey, rather than just thinking, okay, I've got to jump over 100 more hurdles and then I'll be set for life and I'll be at that final destination and I'll never have to worry again. I think if that's the way you view it, it's a little bit delusional, because you'll probably never reach that point where there are no more hurdles to jump over, because life's going to throw you hurdles whatever route you take. So you might as well start to get into the swing of it and enjoy the process. So when something goes wrong, these people don't quit. They figure out what went wrong, they fix it, and they move forward. So when things don't go as planned, don't throw in the towel. Try and see it as just a setback, a temporary hurdle, adjust your strategy and keep moving forwards.
Yeah, it's a real game-changing mindset, having that in place, because there'll be inevitable ups and downs. The problem with quitting is that every time you quit, whatever you then go on to start again, you have to start again from scratch. So if you're continually quitting when things get tough, every time you're saying, okay, now I'm going to throw in the towel for all of the hard work I've put in up to that point, and I'm going to go back to ground zero again and have to build it up every time. And the problem with that is every time you go back to start again, you lose all of that momentum that you'd built up. You lose all of that work you put in, and every time you have to restart. So just know there will be times that will be tough. For me, I had a moment when my suppliers all turned around and said that they were no longer going to supply me very early on in my business, the first 4 suppliers. But that was because I had made mistakes in the way I'd set my business up and the way I'd set my website up. And I needed to pivot and make sure that my website was changed. And over the next couple of days, it was never a bigger problem as I thought it was. I just needed to prove to my suppliers that I had my own brand image and that I was able to look after customers in the way that they wanted. And in the end, it was all something that I probably was far too concerned about, but it was so easy to get very concerned when you're very early on. But I realized I needed to see that setback as something that I could learn from and take action in spite of, the fear, the panic that was coming in, and not just shy away and throw in the towel. So obviously with these things now, we can teach people how to avoid that in Dropship Unlocked, to ever have that situation happen in the first place. But even when things do happen, the key mindset is that you'll just view it as an inevitable setback that will happen, but you just spring back and you can keep pushing on regardless. So with all these types of things that we've talked about, Lewis, there's obviously some traits that are coming in clearly. But what about the habits that you see people often doing? What about some habits that you've noticed from our most successful members?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Consistency. Hands down, that they are showing up every day, even if it's just small tasks, like they're in checking their ad performance, or they're reaching out to a few more suppliers, or they're tweaking their website, or they're just jumping on a collaboration call to help a few members out, or they're jumping on a Q&A call to speak with us and ask any questions, or tuning into one of our live expert member sessions. The way I view it is kind of like it's baked into your habit. When you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed, you brush your teeth. You don't see the impact after one day. You don't brush your teeth and think, wow, my teeth are so healthy, I'm set for life for brushing my teeth. You do it every day. But over time, it's the thing that makes all the difference. And it's the reason why all your teeth don't fall out. We've got members who consistently track their metrics, and that allows them to then make real-time improvements that others miss because they're constantly tweaking things, constantly improving, optimizing things along the way. So if you're serious about growing your business, make it a daily habit to jump in, check your numbers, do the couple of big, high leverage revenue generating activities that are on your list for the day, adjust what's needed, and just keep at it over time. Over time, it's that consistency over time that will lead to you being in that top percentile eventually. And that's just what we see from the many members who we see performing the best in our community over time. It's just the people that show up and they do the work and they do the daily activities required to get there, and they try and enjoy the journey as they go.
Consistency really is the secret sauce, because it adds everything else that we've talked about today together. It brings it all together because you know that those traits that we've talked about, they're doing them consistently. Because you can have the best routine, you can have the best mindset in the world, but if you only follow it for 1 or 2 weeks, it's not going to get you very far. So the most important thing that we see is that consistency. It's why now with my dropshipping businesses, I check in and make sure there's progress happening consistently. So every day I'll make sure that the virtual assistants are taken care of and the store's being looked after and the ad performance is improving. And that can be done daily. It doesn't need to be a massive session on the weekend, like 6 or 7 hours. It doesn't need to happen, because I'm jumping in 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, just making sure that things are growing. And because I've done that consistently now over the long term, we're able to see fantastic results. And the result of all this is, of course, the title suggests, obviously, 10K a month is amazing. But what that then leads to is that freedom that we're all looking for over your time, how much time you spend working, the location where you work from, you can choose that wherever you want to be in the world, and the financial freedom where you're not tied down by a 9-to-5 job in order to be able to cover your expenses and cover the things you want to do with your life. So really good traits that we've noticed there. Just to recap those: confidence along with humility. People aren't afraid to ask for help. People aren't afraid of taking calculated risks. The most successful members have a thick skin, so they can handle setbacks, and ultimately they do all this consistently.
Yeah, exactly. If you focus on just those traits alone, you'll be setting yourself up for long-term success. If you want to take things to the next level, head over to htabook.com, sign up for the £7 trial of the Dropship Unlocked Accelerator. Not only will you get a free copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, which guides you through all of this step by step, but you'll also get access to exclusive training, live coaching calls, and a supportive community of entrepreneurs to help you along the way. It's a great way to kickstart your journey.
Enjoying the podcast? We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment or a review, and we might just feature it on an upcoming episode. Also, for detailed show notes and resources, head to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast.
If you found value from any episode of this podcast, please take just 10 seconds to leave us a quick 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps us more than you could imagine, and who knows, you might just hear your comments on the show. Thanks for being part of our community. Your support helps us keep delivering a new episode every week.
Now, it's that time in the podcast where we're going to answer a question that's coming from a listener. So thank you for your question, Khalid. And if you want to ask a question to be answered not only in the comments section, but also on a potential future podcast episode, then all you need to do is leave a comment beneath the YouTube video version of this episode. So this week, as I said, the question is coming from Khalid, and he's asked, is it better to get the business bank account before my first ever payment or after I start making money? And what's the best business bank account to open?
Great question, Khalid. And whilst this isn't financial advice, what I would do is definitely starting with a business bank account before I was making any sales. It just makes everything way easier from an accounting and a tax perspective. If you think of it like getting your ducks in a row before they start wandering off, if you wait too long, suddenly everything gets messy, they've wandered away. So keeping your business finances separate from your personal ones right from the beginning is really helpful, especially when tax season rolls around and your accountant starts asking for all of your books and everything, and you can just provide them all those transactions in one simple business account. All of your business outgoings went from the same account, all of the income came to the same account. It avoids you having to then reverse directors' loans and things like that later on, and it gets very, very messy. So yeah, you'll definitely thank yourself later, and when your accountant starts pestering you for all these personal transactions that you have to separate out from your business ones, and it gets messy. In terms of recommendations, I mean, I like Tide Bank. They're super easy to set up with. They're perfect for small businesses in the UK. In fact, if you head over to dropshipunlocked.com/Tide, Tide, you'll even get a £50 bonus and free bank transfers for a year when you open up a business account using that link. We'll link that below the episode as well.
Absolutely. Yep. Would recommend Tide as well. It's the bank I've used for the last 3.5 years since I got started with my high ticket dropshipping business. And yeah, simple answer, isn't it, Lewis? Just to keep things simple is to get your bank account open straight away. Okay. And we'll also highlight a recent review that we've had in for the podcast as well. So a big thank you to Vishal Khan for sharing your thoughts in an Apple podcast. So Vishal said, a great listen. The Dropship Unlocked story is one which aims to inspire individuals into starting their own tale of success. The journey which Lewis goes through is one which proves this sort of lifestyle can be achieved. The production values are high, and it is a podcast well worth a listen. As a member of Dropship Unlocked, I would also recommend the masterclass, which is helping me achieve my dreams.
Thank you so much for that, Vishal. Really glad the podcast has been helpful for you, and glad to hear that you're enjoying your time inside the masterclass as well. If you're listening and found value in today's episode, or you found anything that we've said or talked about useful today, why not share it with someone in your network? It's super easy to share, and you could be helping someone take their first step toward e-commerce success in their life. The more people we can help, the better. So your support means a lot.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you're walking away with insights and inspiration.
To kickstart your e-commerce journey, grab a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, at htabook.com. It's a distilled guide based on real experience to help you build your e-commerce venture.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more strategies and success stories. And if you like what you heard, a 5-star review would mean the world to us, and you might just get a shout out on an upcoming episode.
And finally, thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We can't wait to bring you more insights on the next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.